Committee, Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana joining us live here. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate that. Just take us back into the room. And the secretary answering questions or perhaps not answering questions. Were you satisfied with the hearing?
We were not satisfied at all. He was a very evasive witness. You know, remember, he used to be a litigator. He was a U.S. attorney, so he knows how to dodge a question. And he did it very adeptly for 3 days on Capitol Hill. His answers were non-answers. When he did engage with a member who were asking tough questions, he just tried to run out the clock, and it was very, very frustrating. That's why, Sean, when it came to my time, I didn't even bother to ask him any questions that he would prevent untruthful answers to. I just explained what was on the hearts of the American people, and I pointed out in the beginning that, you know, he runs the third largest department of the federal government and the largest immigration system in the world. And I mentioned to him, I believe, it's my belief and all of ours, I think, that his department has the smallest margin for error, because if the Department of Homeland Security, the secretary of that department, is unable or unwilling to do his job, then crime surges, chaos erupts everywhere, and people die. And that's exactly what's happening today.
One of the major focuses for DHS is terrorism, really just weeding out terrorism. It was formed after 9/11, and there were questions about that. Do you know the 42 folks that were on a terror watch list, where they went, what happened to them, et cetera? There was no answer with that. And then you had Congressman Biggs of Arizona calling for Mayorkas to be impeached. Here's that soundbite. Watch.
You're not preventing entries. You're fomenting entries. You're encouraging it. You're either accepting the Biden administration, and if that's the case, then you should be impeached. If you disagree with the Biden administration's program, you should resign. That's where we are.
And that's somewhat of the gray area, and kind of what I wanted to get you to comment on. There is speculation that perhaps the secretary's hands are actually tied, and this may be a larger decision above his pay grade that he must carry out. Or do you put this solely on Mayorkas? Your opinion?
Yeah, I'm not buying it. There's enough blame to go around, but it's the White House, and it is him as the secretary. He does have this responsibility. It's in the mission statement of his department, and it is listed in his job description to keep that border safe and to prevent crime and terror in the homeland. He's doing the opposite of all those things. What Congressman Biggs was saying is what I said, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz, and so many others on the committee, that it's time for a reckoning. I gave the secretary my advice in the closing of my statement and told him he needs to begin looking for another job, because there is an election coming up in November. The American people are going to let their voices be heard on these critical issues, and we are going to retake the majority. And when we do, I believe his name would be first on the list for impeachment. I do believe he's committed impeachable offenses, and he's jeopardizing the homeland. We have drug cartels that are making billions of dollars because of this. They're flooding our streets with fentanyl, which, by the way, has become the #1 cause of death. Overdoses for Americans ages 18 to 45. We have sex traffickers, young children being abused and murdered on the trail. It's just a humanitarian catastrophe, and he is responsible. They could change the policies, Sean, and reverse so much of this overnight, but they are unwilling to do it, and that's why, to us, it looks like an intentional strategy.
You mentioned crimes, and we know by CBP officials acknowledging that there have been gang members that have come over. There are some that do have a criminal background that they know of, some that they don't even know about their criminal background just based on documentation alone or lack thereof. And that question was asked about the possibility of those coming over illegally to commit crimes within the United States of America. Here's that moment.
When it comes to the plan to remove the people that have had due process, you don't have one at all. Will some of the 800,000 commit crimes, yes or no?
Undoubtedly.
I believe he said undoubtedly at the end of that soundbite. That was Congressman Gaetz there. Take me back to that moment, your thoughts.
He did, and obviously he stated what everyone knows. Of course there are lawbreakers. Everyone who comes over that border at this point is coming illegally, so we know that they have no regard for the rule of law. But worse than that, we know for a fact, because of Freedom of Information Act requests that we had to press, that there are at least 42 known terrorists on the terrorist watch list who have gotten into this country. Now, we have no idea how many are actually here because, as you said, lack of documentation and the fact that so many have gotten away or come through completely undetected. It's a very dangerous situation. We've put the American people in jeopardy. We are jeopardizing people in communities all across this country. Every state is a border state now, because as we pointed out in the hearing, the evidence shows DHS is shipping people all across the country. They're taking these illegals. They're not deporting them. They're bringing them to a community near you. They're putting them on ghost flights in the middle of the night and buses, by the way, funded by taxpayer dollars, after they're given food, clothing, health care, and cell phones, and they're sending them to our communities around the country. It's absolutely outrageous. If we didn't have the videotape to prove this, it would sound like some kind of wild conspiracy theory, but this is happening every hour, every day right now.
The Ohio congressman asked that very question of his constituents want to know how many buses, how many illegals came to the state of Ohio. He said, oh, I have to get you that information. I will have to get you that information at a later date. Didn't have the information that anyone requested, or multiple congressional leaders requested. Final question for you really quickly. To be fair, the secretary did say that he has a plan, a 6-pillar plan. Tell me how you read that plan.
I read that plan as too little too late and a rehash of what they're already doing. It's merely for talking point purposes. It's lofty language and platitudes. It will do nothing to reverse this problem. If they would hold Title 42 instead of repealing it, if they would remove their catch and release program, if they would go back to the Remain in Mexico policies, the things that President Trump had done under his administration to get control of this situation, we could fix this overnight. But they are unwilling to do it. And that's why, again, Sean, we believe this is an intentional effort to flood our country with illegals, and it is a dangerous situation.
Title 42 sits with the federal courts. MPP, Remain in Mexico, remains with the Supreme Court. Either way, we'll wait for those outcomes. Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Congressman, good to see you, and you have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. You too.